Round 4 of 6 races this season in the IMSA Prototype Challenge presented by Mazda. 24 cars, 2 different categories. There are 16 LMP3 cars and how many are that would be 8 in the Mazda Prototype Challenge, which is the old Elan Mazda cars from several years ago that used to be part of the IMSA Prototype Lights Championship, as it was called then. Let's start from the back of the grid. Row 12, John Brownson for Eurosport Racing in the Elan DPO2 had some problems in qualifying, so we'll start from the back. Howard Jacobs alongside him for Performance Tech Motorsports in car number 77. John Brownson, by the way, drives for Eurosport Racing. Row 11 on the grid is Stephen Dawes for Performance Tech Motorsports in car number 22. Alongside him for One Motorsports is Paul Lahaye in car number 36. His teammate Dave House in number 86 will start in the 20th position. Alongside on the grid will be Bart Wolf in car number 28 for Wolf Motorsports. And on the front row of the grid, ninth row overall, Robert Masson will start the Performance Tech Motorsports car number 11, and Michael Klemecki from Windsor, Ontario will start on the pole position in the MPC category, car number 31 for Eurosport Racing. Moving on to the LMP3 cars, Jim Garrett had a problem yesterday in qualifying for P1 Motorsports, will start 16th in car number 42. Alongside him is teammate Joel Janko in the car number 25. Row 7 of the grid on the outside, Charles Chi for 5 miles out racing, that's a Norma M30, car number 88. Alongside him, Brad Baker from Oshawa, just a few miles away literally from the racetrack, in car number 19. For Baker Racing, that's a Ligier JSP3. 2 more Ligiers on the 6th row of the grid, Matt Dickin for P1 Motorsports in car number 17, and Lance Wilsey for Extreme Speed Motorsports, that's car number 33. Row 5, Cameron Castles, another Ligier for Performance Tech Motorsports, car number 75. Cameron from Saskatchewan. No, he's not from Saskatchewan, is he? Whatever he's from, somewhere in Canada. And Hannah Zellers in car number 87. 5 miles out racing, that's a Norma M30. My apologies, it's Coldstream, BC he's from, by the way. 8th position on the grid, Rob Hoders in car number 51 for K2R Motorsports. That's another Ligier JSP3. A similar car from ANSA Motorsports is Dean Baker, also local driver here in Ontario, in car number 4. Row 3 of the grid on the outside, David Grant in car number 40 for Polestar Motor Racing, another Ligier JSP3. Alongside him, the Norma M30 for 47 Motorsports is car number 47, TJ Fisher. His teammate in car number 74, Anthony Simone from Aurora, Ontario, will start in the 4th position. Alongside him, the championship leader Chris Wright in car number 30 for Extreme Speed Motorsports. His teammate in car number 3, Maxwell Hanratty, will start in the 2nd position, and on the pole position for the first time in car number 7 for Charles Wicks Racing, along with Performance Tech Motorsports in the Ligier JSP3 from Brazil, the 21-year-old Leo Lamelas.
1 hour 45 minutes on the circuit. The field are side by side. The green flag is in hand, and Shea Adam and Jeremy Shaw will take you through the action.
Perfect 2x2 at the front of the field as we see the green flag, and time has started counting down. Leo Lamelas with a great line into turn 1, defends not one line but both going in, and has a good lead before they even get to turn 2. The MPC cars a bit further back looked a bit clean as well, Jeremy. I'm quite surprised that they all made it through in an orderly fashion. As there's a spin, and that is Cameron Castles. Contact there with the number 75, isn't it? Or was it the 70? No, it was the 75. The Performance Tech machine goes around, but Cameron able to continue because there is such great runoff area in turn 2, now completely paved through and through. That would not have been a happy story a couple years ago, Jeremy.
No, that was a pretty lucky escape there for Cameron Castles. Hopefully there won't be any damage to either of those cars. A couple of them got together, didn't they? But that was a narrow escape and a very scary moment. That's pretty much flat out on the first lap in these cars, or perhaps not, as Cam found out. Let's have a look at the inside there.
No,
he got help there from that's number 25, and that's Joel Janko, isn't it, who got into the back of Cameron Castles, and that was Charles Chi, I think, taking evasive action in one of the 5 miles out car. That's kind of at 88, went around the outside, was able to avoid I think, both of them.
Very heads up, as we are still green here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. So the debris that was scattered just off the racing line, race control is deemed to be far enough out of the way that they are not concerned. So after lap 1, it is Leo Lamelas in the 7, leading Chris Wright in the 30. Charles Chi has come into the pit lane in the number 88. It's showing up on timing and scoring as he drops down. That would be, I would imagine, precautionary, just to make sure that there is no sort of debris on his cars. No, the left rear, the bodywork is actually hanging a bit loose, so maybe he didn't get as scot-free as we thought he had. Maxwell Hanratty in 3rd. It's Anthony Simone just from up the road. You said Aurora, he's from Innisfil, which is just south of Barrie, so a local driver. He is in 4th, and then in 5th, Dean Baker in that number 4 machine. Leading an MPC, we have had a shakeup. Michael Klemecki no longer leads. It is the 28 of M. Bart Wolf ahead of the 86 of Dave House, and then Dr. Robert Masson in the 11. And then our pole sitter, Michael Klemecki. So a bit of a mix-up there in the opening lap.
And I would hazard a guess to say that was because of that incident at top of the hill in turn 2 with cars spinning all over the place. Evasive action taken by many of the front contenders in the MPC class.
Cameron Castle's also into the pit lane in his number 75 machine, as he will now go a lap down as the leaders come through to complete their 2nd lap. And bit of a gap forming between the top 2. Chris Wright hanging on to the back of Lamelas. So a good scrap going on up there for the overall lead. And then cars starting to filter out a little bit further back through the field. But that number 74 of Anthony Simone, clearly with quite a bit of track knowledge around here, is putting pressure on Maxwell Hanratty in the number 3, the green and black Ligier. That's going to be a good battle because, of course, Jeremy, with the 2 different chassis there, Anthony Simone in the Norma and Hanratty in the Ligier. The start is under review. We have received race control's message that they are looking into that to make sure that everything is going cleanly. But the blue Norma, able to catch up with the green Ligier at different points along the track. The Norma, which is traditionally a very quick car in a straight line, will be loving where they are on track right now because the back straight is just a place where he can slowly reel in Hanratty and let his presence be known.
That's right, the Norma is renowned as being pretty fleet on the straight, and up the outside though is Anthony Simone trying to make that pass on Hanratty. Hanratty did a good job there to protect the inside line as they entered turn 8. No way through there for the local driver Anthony Simone. It's car number 74 tucked back into 4th place.
And about to put in the fastest lap of the race as Leo Lamelas comes across the line. No, Simone's lap, the 3rd sector was a bit slowed down, so clearly having that Ligier of Hanratty in front of him is causing a bit of grief to the Canadian behind in the blue Norma. TJ Fisher, the team car to the 74, a bit further back, but still well within the picture, so it's not complete isolation for the 74.
No, and TJ Fisher in number 47 car able to find a way past Dean Baker on that. 2 brothers, Dean and Brad Baker, both renowned historic racers. Their father was involved in racing as well. In fact, here he used to be the grid marshal, I gather, in the old Can-Am days, going way back. So those two, the Baker boys, have a lot of history here and loving driving these cars for the first time this season.
So the question is, which one of them gets to win then? Because 2 separate cars means that only one Baker could stand on the top step of the podium.
That's right, 2 separate teams.
Exactly.
As well, that's a fact.
Exactly. Car 25, that is Joel Janko, penalty. Incident responsibility for the contact with Charles Chi and with Cameron Castles. So I guess Joel Janko JJ is fascinated with the letters CC and CC.
Yeah, that was unfortunate there. That just a little tap from behind by Joel Janko, just a little bit. He does a remarkable job, Joel Janko, for somebody who's well past retirement age, but he does sometimes get a little bit carried away, and once again he did there. See the damage now to the nose cone of that number 25 car, dislodged as a result of that incident earlier on. A
lot of damage to the left front of the nose cone, but it looked like the right rear bodywork was shaking around a bit too, Jeremy, as he comes out of Moss Corner and down the Andretti Straight, and he's still at what looks to be a pretty good pace for somebody who's just come out of the pit lane having served that drive-through penalty. But I would be on the radio, especially having seen him at a slower pace coming by, saying, Joel, you might want to pit. We got to do some remedial work there, bud, and you're already a lap down on the field. And another penalty from race control. Car 4, oh, it's one of the Baker brothers we were just talking about. Car 4 jumped the start, so that will be a drive-through penalty for the Ligier of Dean Baker. That's going to be unfortunate for that car. He is sharing this weekend with Zachary Robuchon, another one of our Ontario natives from Ottawa. So Zachary, who has quite a bit of success here in GT3 Cup Canada, will be quite disappointed that his team car is going to be on the back foot for right now.
Yeah, that is unfortunate, isn't it? Because he made he was running a good pace there in that. Where was he running? In the fifth position early on. Yeah. But he's going to lose all that ground now by making that pit stop. But he's got a lot of experience in vintage cars, as Dean, and it was Brad Baker, who made the decision first of all to do this series this season, and then later he persuaded his brother Dean to do it as well. And so that's the main reason they're running in two separate teams this season. But it's a shame that Joel Janko now also on pit lane.
And he will be getting a new nose cone, I would imagine. It looks like they've already put a new one on, actually. It's holding together much better than the old one was. And they are doing a slight shock change while they have the opportunity. In MPC, our leader is Bart Wolf, the guy who lives basically next door to Road America. So he'll be used to these fast and flowing racetracks like Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. Quite a bit shorter than Road America, but still as fast, if not faster, than the next racetrack, or a racetrack later on the schedule for the IMSA series, but not for the Prototype Challenge. I am right in saying that, right, Jeremy? I'm doubting myself now. Yes, the next track for this series is at VIR, so that will be in the middle of August. But all of a sudden, there's a battle on track. Michael Klemecki has passed Dr. Masson and has now chased down Dave House, the most experienced driver age-wise in our field. This is the battle for second in the MPC class. Klemecki, who started with the number 1 next to his name, is still looking to regain positions lost. But Klemecki, a guy who does not do every single race, is definitely comfortable around the 2.5 miles of Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. Their combined age, Jeremy, would be somewhere around 135, I believe, if my math is not too far off.
Yeah, remarkable. Dave House became the oldest ever winner in IMSA history, I think, at Sebring at the age of 75. It is remarkable what he was able to do there, but he's got some pressure now, but no way through there for Michael Klemecki at turn 5 and 5/8, but he's got right on Dave House's tail coming out of that corner. Oops.
Charles Shee goes for a spin. That was right below us. That is the final turn on the track at 10. Looks like he got some help though, Jeremy. There are bigger body parts on the exit of turn 10 on the driver's left as he gets going now. Is there anyone still stuck? Yes, there is. That's the 74. No, that's Anthony Simone, the hometown hero, who has a lot of damage to the left rear of that car. Pops open the door on his Norma and will be surrendering the race at this point. This has to be a full course caution, and it is.
Yeah, and that was, got to presume, well, Charles Shee obviously being lapped there. And Anthony Simone, you can see the frustration there as he pounds the steering wheel. He'd been trading fastest laps. Maybe 3 or 4 of them actually trading fastest laps of the race up until that point. Max Hanratty, he and the race leader Leo Lamelas had all been trading fastest laps. So maybe we have a replay.
Charles Shee, we're seeing rolling backwards on the track. There are a great deal of skid marks going off from the proper racing line, and he gets moving again, but the bodywork was already there, so the contact had already happened. Yep. I'm gutted for Anthony Simone, a driver who frequently races in the NASCAR Pinty series. He's been doing that since about 2008, but normal day job is innovative plumbing. So he is a plumber by day trade. Yeah. He's the owner of that company.
And 20 years ago or so ago, he was an up-and-comer in USF 2000 championship, actually, in open-wheel cars. And as you were saying, he concentrated on his business, been out of the sport for a long, long time, but super enthusiastic and has been running extremely well this season. And they've had all sorts of niggly little problems so far with that car, but this is not a niggly little thing, unfortunately. He's going to be out of the race.
And his 2 sons with whom he shares the passion of racing, so they will, I would imagine they would be here since it's, less than 2 hours away from home, as Jill Janko now comes back out of the pit lane and will rejoin.
It's not Aurora anymore than her.
It was Innisfil on an email I saw this morning, and Innisfil is just a tick south of Barrie, so just up the 400.
It's listed as Aurora, but it's probably moved, or maybe my chart's old.
Well, it's
as I am.
Anthony. Moving along, not going to touch that one with a 10-foot pole. Anthony Simone, it's really a shame because he had put in the fastest Sector 2 time of anybody. Yeah. So really it's wondering what could have been for that number 74 Norma.
Very much so. I mean, he was involved in that big battle with Max Hanratty, and those who have been actually closing on the leading pair as well. Leah Lamella still leads the race for the number 7 team. That's the Charles Wick Racing with Performance Tech Motorsports car number 7, and Chris Wright, the championship leader, was right with him, and right behind those two was that battle between Max Hanratty and Anthony Simone. And as I say, they had been actually edging closer the 3rd and 4th place cars to the 1st and 2nd cars, but unfortunately now we're going to be left with just 3 cars battling for the lead, although TJ Fisher, he was running a good pace as well, now elevated into the 4th place ahead of the number 40 of David Grant.
Benefiting from the team cars travesty. Well, we've had 13 minutes of this race so far, and we should mention, while we're behind safety car, give the opportunity for the fans around the track who perhaps haven't seen these cars run this year or with the series in the state that it is. You're probably thinking, wait a minute, aren't these races 45 minutes and then we move on to the next? Well, no, the format has changed for this season. It's one longer race per weekend. That's why some of the cars have co-drivers, so you might see different helmets in some of the cars. If you can see the driver's helmet, it is an MPC class car, of which M. Bart Wolf is currently leading in the number 28. If you cannot see the driver's helmet, i.e. if it is a closed cockpit car, that would be the LMP3 machines. We have Ligiers and we have Normas. The car currently being loaded onto the back of a flatbed is a Norma. A Ligier currently leading, but the first Norma up the field is TJ Fisher, as you rightly mentioned, Jeremy. Bart Wolf will not be happy with this caution coming out because he was pulling a gap on Michael Klemecki and Dave House, who were battling over the 2nd place. Klemecki came out ahead and was going to be chasing down Bart Wolf, but it was going to be a bit more of a struggle. Now it's going to be quite a bit easier when we come out from the safety car. But the other big thing to note about this series, pit stops. They do happen. You cannot make it through the race without refueling the car. Even if you're driving by yourself, you have to get out of the car and climb back over the wall while the refueling is going on. So it makes it very fair. There's no advantage for driving this race with one driver or two. It's simply about driving the car and who can do it the best. 40-minute minimum drive time, by the way. So the pit window is not yet open, and it will open with an hour and 5 minutes to go, and it will close with just over 40 minutes to go. And it's a time pit stop as well. I do need to mention that. Yeah,
minimum time has to be spent on pit lane. That's in order to make sure that the driver changes are completed relatively leisurely, indeed, with the emphasis on safety rather than outright speed.
It's a very cool helmet design for Bart Wolf, gotta say. Never really had an opportunity to stare at it, but red, yellow with blue on top, and it looks like an L on the side, almost Superman style. All right, the Norma is on the back of the flatbed. That would be for the 47 team, car number 74. They keep a theme going there if you see what they've done, which means that we should be able to get back to green here relatively soon. The crash structure of that car, Jeremy, held up very well. And while we haven't seen what caused the incident, we know that the 88 of Charles Shee was involved, but we don't know in what capacity. I'm very impressed with the safety structure of that car. There really isn't a place on this track that's good to have an accident.
No.
Turn 10 is not a particularly fast one, but it can be a violent one, especially if you're coming across lap traffic, you just catch them in the wrong spot. So to see the nose of that car still with its initial structure, that's really comforting.
Yeah, it really is, and that whole safety aspect, the fact that these cars are so sophisticated, both mechanically and particularly with regard to safety. That's one of the reasons why the Baker brothers are racing in this championship. They generally race a whole bunch of different historic cars, Formula One cars, sports cars, you name it, they've got them because there's so much passion for motorsport in that family. But these cars are a heck of a lot safer to drive, and just talking to to Brad just a little while ago, maybe less than an hour ago, and he was saying that really with the vintage Formula One cars, you tend not to drive those at much more than kind of 80%, because if anything does go wrong and you hit anything, you can't just go buy the bits off a shelf. These cars you can, and plus there's a lot more around you to protect you if there is an incident, so you can drive these cars much harder than you would do one of their vintage cars.
That's a very good point. It's not everybody who's like Porsche and has a stock of completely brand new old car bits hidden away somewhere in a factory.
No, they among Brad's cars was a BRM P160, which is a glorious V12 Formula One car from the early 70s. A replay again of that incident on the first corner. There was contact there. We could just see between the rear of the number 88 car, Charles Shears. He went trying to go around the outside, just clipped one of those cars. I think it was the number 25 of Joel Janken. He clipped, but clearly you could see there that there was contact as they went over the rise at corner 2 between the front of number 25 car onto the rear of Cameron Castles in the number 75.
Lights should be out on the safety car, and they are. The beautiful little Mazda MX-5. Oh, man, one of those around here would be so much fun to drive, even at the safety car speeds, which means that we will be going back to green this time by, and there we go. The Mazda pulls into the pit lane, and green flag is now back in the air. That was a bit of a delayed start there, but Leo Lamelas right on it. Chris Wright not letting him get away. The 7 still leads, but the 30 right there, and then a little bit of a gap back to Maxwell Hanratty, TJ Fisher, and Dean Grant, all running 3, 4, 5 as quickly as you can say it. Good restart by everybody. I have to say I'm impressed at the effort by Chris Wright to hold on to the back of Leo Lamelas. Two different teams represented there as well, Jeremy.
That's right, the Charles Wicks Racing Performance Tech entry of Leo Lamelas out in front. The youngster, just 21 years of age, from Sao Paulo, Brazil. In second place, Chris Wright. He's been around the sport a good bit longer. He's from the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area. 23 years old of age now, and he's concentrating on this championship for the whole season long. He's done a lot of racing though. Started off doing some Pro Mazda this season. He's been racing in Europe as well this season, so he's got a lot of racing miles under his belt, and you can see now he's putting the pressure on Lamelas going up the hill toward turn 8.
Chris Wright goes to the outside. He's going to try and make it the long way around. Leo Lamelas with the ideal line. Chris Wright decides that not going to make that. I better back out and try and set him back up again going into turn 1. So Lamelas will lead this lap if he can hold it together through 10, which he does. And Chris Wright in second with about 0.7 of a second back to Maxwell Hanratty, then TJ Fisher, Dean Grant, and Hannah Zellers up into 6th position, In MPC, after the restart, M. Bart Wolf has nothing over Michael Klemecki and then Dave House. So those three are all tethered together by a very thin wire. But it is Leo Lamelas pulling out a very slight gap on Chris Wright now. He's got about half a second worth of breathing room. That's not much, and that will disappear quickly. Wow, Klemecki, in the first series of corners after they've completed their first lap, put a prototype, an LMP3 car, between himself and second place Bart Wolf in the blue MPC. Klemecki, who traditionally runs the white car when he comes to race this weekend. It's very distinct to see the white with the blue in the middle. He's done that for a couple of years now, Klemecki.
That's normal colours?
It's normal colors for when he comes to race in the series, but he doesn't race the series every weekend. Sorry, that's
right.
what I meant to say.
Right, got it.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. And what a great restart that was for Michael Klemecki there, able to get up into the lead. And interesting, on that first lap, we saw Lamelas and Wright edge out a little bit on Max Hanratty, as was the case at the very start of the race. But now, next time around, Hanratty's closed that gap, and the three leaders pretty much nose to tail as they come across to complete lap 13. And hats off here to Hannah Zellers in car number 87. She's made really good progress, started in 9th place, up now into 5th. 21-year-old from Indiana, making her debut in this championship, and really her first professional racing debut. She's done a fair bit of racing over the years, but not at this sort of a level.
So it is 7 from 30, then 3, 47, and 87. If you were watching around the track, that would be Leo Lamelas in the red number 7, leads Chris Wright in the black number 30, Third place is Maxwell Hanratty in the green number 3. Then is the 47 Norma of TJ Fisher, who, by the way, goes by TJ because his name Travis was the name of a bully when he was in elementary school, so he started combining his first and middle initial. He is in the blue and pink Norma, and then Hannah Zellers in the white and purpley Norma. And the top 4 are checking out, Jeremy. There's 6 seconds between the 5th place car and the leader, but there is only 2.5 between 1 and 4. So a very good restart by our top 4 group, any one of which could come out with a win quite easily. The number 7, the leader, already has a win on the year. That came at Sebring a bit earlier on in the season. The 3rd place car, best finish, has been 4th so far this year for the driver of the car, Maxwell Hanratty. He's had a couple different co-drivers over the first 3 races, but now with Garrett Grist, a guy with some local track knowledge, that car will be very good later on once Grist gets behind the wheel, even though he's not driven the car very much.
Yeah, that's right. And TJ Fisher, you just talked about him in 4th position. He's closed right up on that last lap. That was his best lap of the race so far in car number 47, that 4-car train battling at the front of the field.
Should also mention that the number 30, the car driven by Chris Wright, won the last time out at Barber Motorsport Park. And the 47 with TJ Fisher behind the wheel has a pair of 2nd place finishes from the first 2 races. So all of our top 4 cars that are glued together crossing the line now, 1, 2, 3, 4, as quickly as I can say it, they all have podium experience. Some of them have winning experience, but they all want this weekend to be the one where they take over the championship lead. We are more than halfway through the season at this round of the championship for IMSA Prototype Challenge presented by Mazda here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park this weekend. It's round 4 of 6, so it's starting to get a bit serious. Michael Klemecki ahead of M. Bart Wolf. Look at that. He is not really pulling out too much of a gap, though, Jeremy. It's less than a second between 1st and 2nd, and then Dave House a bit further back in the 3rd place. Dave, whose car is very noticeable because it's always in the bright pink, battles up and down the field, though. But that initial 4-car train, really, if you have a bad run out of Moss Corner, you will wind up in 4th place, as there has been a coming together. Hannah Zellers in the 87 coming out of Moss Corner, and I think that's Rob Hodes in the number 51, Ligier. Would that be him?
It is Rob Hodes, yes. He's spun around there. You say Hannah was involved as well?
Yes, she was driving away very slowly.
Okay, she had been a couple of cars ahead of him, so not quite sure what happened there.
Maybe she went for a spin and then threw Rob off of his game. Rob Hodes, who shares the car with Sean Rahal, a former series champion back in the old iteration of the series when all the cars were MPC cars, more or less. So he knows what it's like to be driving a car with your helmet completely exposed. He understands how the MPC cars handle around this track. He will be very strong later on in the race. Hopefully Rob has done little or no damage to that number 51. It's still Lamellis who leads as the leaders come through turn 5 now, back past the scene of the accident. Hannah Zellers still shown in 6th place, so she managed to recover and get going again, well ahead of Lance Wilsey in the number 33 Ligier.
Yeah, he was a long way back. And Rob Hodes has got going. He just come past in the 19th position, so he is still on the lead lap, and he's been running well this weekend in that K2R machine. He'll hand over that car to Sean Rahal, former series champion in prototype lights, for the 2nd stint in this race.
Leo Lamellis, Chris Wright, Maxwell Hanratty. Nothing's changed there. Dave House. How did he get up? Big crash for Dave House as he was up with Bart Wolf and Michael Klemecki. All of a sudden, I can't see that not being a full course caution, Jeremy, as
no.
Dave's car has come to a rest. Driver's right outside of Moss Corner. There's a big shard of debris there as well as he was coming through. He had slight contact with Wolf in 5A, was well ahead of him going into 5B, had a big slide, managed to recover, then saw Bart on the outside of him and went sharp right off into the guardrail as the full course caution has come out. And one of his tires actually broke away and then came back and sort of hit the back of the car after it had come to a rest. So full course caution for the second time in this 1 hour and 45-minute contest with 1 hour and 19 still to play.
Boy, that was unfortunate. That was a big impact there for Dave House. He'd made a very bold move to the inside at Moss Corner there, going into 5. I mean, perfectly legitimate pass. He dived to the inside and had that pass made, but then the car got really, really loose coming out of 5A, got it totally sideways, corrected it. Bart Wolf went back to pass him on the left-hand side, and after that, the two of them were kind of in the middle of the road, and there was contact between the two. I'm not really quite sure why there would have been contact. Maybe Dave was sort of trying to retain or regain control of that car, and then after that, it was kind of a pinball thing. He just cannoned the number 86 car, Dave Wolf, off to the right-hand side of the racetrack, and heavy contact with the barrier.
Yeah, for Dave House, he made a brilliant pass into 5A, made it stick. He hit a little bit of a bump, lost the tail of the car, managed to recover it, got it going in the right direction, started moving over toward the 28 where he didn't realize that Wolf had positioned his car. There was a slight bit of contact, and then it shot House off over into driver's right. I'm not sure if the contact was enough to push him off, Jeremy, but it probably startled him enough to where he was reacting.
He would have known that the other car was alongside. He'd hear it apart from anything else. But I think what he didn't expect Bart Wolf to kind of move across the middle of the road, which is what you kind of do there. You come out of 5A there on the left-hand side of the racetrack, but then the next the first part of the Mario Andretti straight is actually a pretty stout kink to the left.
Yes.
It's easily flat out, but you would naturally move toward the middle of the racetrack, which is what Bart was doing. And Dave didn't really give him enough room there for that to happen. So it's just sort of kind of an unfortunate contact between those two. And with the contact was stout enough it was effectively from, well, it was sort of side by side, but the two cars were going at different speeds, weren't they? And
yes.
And that just sort of kind of cannoned that car. I'm sure it probably ripped the steering just instantaneously from the control of Dave House, and then he lost it after that.
Dave House.
Good to see him get out of the car, however.
That's exactly what I was going to say. With the assistance of the IMSA safety crew, they took their time. He stood up out of the car. He is now standing and talking to them with his helmet on. They're just going through their safety procedures, making sure that the driver is okay. That's one thing that a lot of drivers do in endurance races, Jeremy. If the crew chief comes on the radio and asks them, "Are you okay to do another stint?" Often they will say, yeah, I'm fine, when really they need to take a breather. It's the same with the medical staff, as the right side of that MPC car absolutely demolished. Did a great job holding up, though, to keep Dave safe so that he could at least step out of the car under his own power. It's the same thing when you get into a crash, though. The adrenaline is rushing, and so the safety crew's job is to make sure that even though you say you're okay, you really are. They want to know much better than you can tell them, as it's now dangling the remnants of the number 86, dangling from a tow line. And the IMSA safety crew still working. We will be at least one more lap behind the safety car.
That's a great shame for Dave House. He came into this round just 2 points behind Robert Masson in the Mazda Prototype Challenge points table. He was tied with Bart Wolf and Tazzy Ortiz for second place. They both have 86 points to the 88 of Robert Masson. Robert Masson driving car number 11, and that incident will have elevated him now up into the third position in the class, and so that'll be certainly good news for Robert Masson's points aspirations. And he this weekend, of course, Shay, is going to be sharing with his son Kyle.
Very, very cool experience coming up a little bit later on for that number 11 car, as Masson will still be the name on the timing screen. That's not changing, but instead of the R, it will be a K. And it's a pretty good thing, too, that father is so generous to his son, because Kyle, who drives in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, will not be starting in that series this weekend. He and his co-driver James French will both be driving in this race instead, and James French will be sharing the number 77 with Howard Jacobs, that car currently 7th in class. So the number 7 pervasive with them.
Yeah, and the decision by the Massons to race together for this weekend, that was made a few weeks ago.
Yes.
Because for two reasons. Number one, it's going to be fun for Robert, for Dad to work alongside his son. Of course, he was the champion in NPC last season, a runaway champion. There was really basically no competition for him, but he dominated the whole series and was a deserved champion with some very fast laps, by the way, and several lap records along the way. Kyle has been driving this season with the same team, Performance Tech Motorsports, in that Orica Gibson in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. But they had first of all, that car had a big wreck last week when it was nerfed off the track by a rival at Watkins Glen. Heavy contact while Joel Miller was driving, the third driver in that car, and it was actually Joel's in lap, which I hadn't realised was even more frustrating for the team. The team worked massively hard this week to repair the car. Unfortunately, there was another breakage on Friday morning in the first session that caused that car to crash again, and Brent O'Neill, the team principal, he didn't want to put the team through that drama again of completely rebuilding a car. So rather than come here very much on the back foot, they've decided to regroup with that prototype car and come back strong again for the next race, which will be at Road America. So give them time to repair that car. The co-driver though for the WeatherTech car for this weekend, James French, as you say, he was then going to be sitting around doing absolutely nothing,
twiddling his thumbs.
And then Howard Jacobs, he went along to the team principal, but Brent O'Neill, and said, "Hey, normally, as you know," he said to the team principal, "I normally like to drive these races on my own, but do you think that James might be interested in driving alongside me in the NPC race?" And Brent said, "Are you kidding? I'm sure he would love to do that." So he got the invitation, and James said, "Thank you very much indeed," and did a couple of laps yesterday. Never driven one of these cars before, so it will be
initiation
James French,
by fire.
initiation by fire, who will take over in the second part of this race from that number 77 of Howard Jacobs. Cool story.
It really is, and just the cherry on top, the next time that number 38 Orica does see the racetrack will be at James's home track at Road America, where James cut his teeth, learned how to drive on historic Formula One cars. So that boy will be super fired up and ready to try and get a win. At number 77 will be quite fun to watch and just see what James French can do, having never driven the car before, but he's very familiar with the track. He should be pretty exciting to see him versus his co-driver on track in the same cars.
Yeah, very much so. He does have a lot of experience there in a whole bunch of different cars, and very much looking forward to that. And we know how quick Kyle is. He's come on hugely. Not been racing for all that long. The two Massons, father and son, just kind of on a lark. I think it was a birthday present for Carl. He decided to go along to the race school, the Skip Barber Racing School. Both had a great time, and it was apparent instantly that Carl actually had some ability. He had some talent. So they said, "Okay, well, let's go do some racing." And that was only 3 or 4 years ago, and they made big strides, both of them, since then. And Dad saw how much fun the son was having and said, "I need some of that myself." So he had his first full season of racing just last year in NPC.
And Dr. Robert Masson, who is a surgeon in the Central Florida region, is a very, very capable medical professional, and he's proven this year to be quite a good driver as well. He got a win at Daytona driving completely by himself, had a suspension failure at Sebring International Raceway, and then came back to a third place finish at Barber Motorsport Park. So he either finishes on the podium or he doesn't finish, Jeremy. I think that's what we've learned from this year. But he is part of the Masson Spine Institute, and a very good doctor to go to. We've actually got some people in the paddock who have taken up his services and rave about him.
Yeah, one of the country's leading spinal surgeons is Dr. Masson, and they carry sponsorship from the Centennial Spine Institute, isn't it, on the side of their cars, and a very, very accomplished physician. Becoming a pretty accomplished race driver as well.
We are under 1 hour and 10 minutes remaining. The lights on the safety car should be going out this time by, because I believe most of the safety crew has been moved away, and indeed it has.
And the drivers need to do a minimum of 45 minutes in this race. So we're only about 5 minutes away from that window, aren't we?
Did it change? I thought it was 40 minutes.
Is it 40 minutes?
That's what it's been all year. It's been a 40-minute minimum drive time. So, but you are correct, because the race is...
In that case, we've reached that threshold, haven't we?
No, it's a 1 hour and 45-minute race, so you are correct.
Yeah.
So the lights are out on the safety car. We've got to do about 3 more laps before the pits will open for that minimum drive time having been met. People are getting a little bit antsy, Jeremy. We've been under caution for quite some time now, and the leaders want to go back to green. Safety car is in. Leo Lamelis with a great jump this time. Chris Wright nowhere near as close to him as he was the last time. Green flag is in the air, and Maxwell Hanratty in the green Ligier behind is trying to fend off the Norma of TJ Fisher and the Ligier of Dean Grant. Good start from our mid-pack as well, as everybody looks to make it cleanly through turn 1. And at the front, Leo Lamelis, 0.3 of a second already up on Chris Wright, as they are now coming into turn 3, exiting there and looking at turn 4. Good restart by Leo Lamelis.
Yeah, he's a quick study, is Leo. He's one of several drivers coached by Bruno Junqueira, including the Bakers as well, actually.
He's a good person to have on your
yes,
side.
Yes, he is.
Well, the number 30, Chris Wright, has put the heat into the tires and has realized that it's a very long straight. If I draft him, I might have a chance to get close. Not close enough to make a move going into turn 8 as the MPC leaders coming through turn 5. It's Klemecki, Wolf, Brownson now in third, and then Dr. Masson.
Yeah, almost side by side, the two leaders, whereas they headed into turn 8, but it is still the number 7 car of Leo Lamelis that holds on in the lead, with those other 2 cars, and the number 47 hanging in there, and number 40 of David Grant, a former champion in the Atlantic Series, is hanging on there in 5th position as well.
Leo Lamelis just took a hand off the steering wheel and held it up in the air. Not sure if he can remember that there is no rear window behind him, so if he was trying to signal back to Chris Wright a little bit of displeasure, it wouldn't have been seen by anyone but us and the people looking ahead in turn 1. Maxwell Hanratty holding on much better this restart than he did the last time to those top 3. And now the gap is between TJ Fisher and Maxwell Hanratty as the MPC cars find themselves in a bit of traffic. Now, who is that amongst them?
Charles Chi moving out of the way?
I think it was.
Charles Chi is a couple of laps off the pace, having made that pit stop after the incident on the first lap. Michael Klemecki's in the pits.
Now, this is interesting, Jeremy, because he does not have a minimum drive time to meet. Klemecki, driving by himself, can pit at any time, just as long as he has enough fuel to then make it to the end of the race. So he's gotten out of the car, and they haven't...
seem to be much urgency down there, unfortunately, and I fancy... I mean, if he could probably get to the end from here, so strategically that might be a pretty good idea. In case there's a full course caution, he's already made his pit stop, but that looked to me like it might be a mechanical problem. I don't know, we'll have to wait and see.
Well, it would be intriguing, because that would be the complete opposite of what we've seen in every race so far.
Yes.
Normally, with the MPC cars, you wait as long as humanly possible before you come in, make your final pit stop. That way you only have to put a bit of a splash in the car, and the car never gets back up to that full weight again. If you came in early, though, you would get the advantage of the possibility of a safety car, like you said, Jeremy, so that is quite an intriguing prospect.
So that's going to put Bart Wolf back into the lead again of MPC in car number 28. But he's got a tremendous battle there with John Brownson, who started at the tail of the field of vast experience. Oops, there's a spin for David Baker too. That's the 5th place car.
That is the number 40. That's David Grant, Jeremy, sharing with his brother Keith. They've got a whole slew of SCCA experience.
2 brothers in this field.
Two pairs of brothers. Very good point. One pair sharing a car and one pair making life difficult for us and running with different teams even. Let's see what happened. Just lost it coming through out of 5A before he even got to 5B of Moss Corner. Innocent enough spin, didn't hit anything, managed to keep going. Probably a bit of vibration in the tires now. And the drive time has now elapsed. We are 1 hour and 4 minutes, 50 seconds to go. So we should start to see some pit callers here soon. It was a 5th place finish, by the way, the last time out for the number 40 machine, the Polestar Motor Racing Inc. team. Looking to replicate that or do a little bit better. If you can improve week on week, you're doing something right. Leo Lamelis, half a second ahead of Maxwell Hanratty. Half a second ahead of Chris Wright, who's 0.3 of a second in front of Maxwell Hanratty. And then a further 6 tenths back is TJ Fisher. They have nearly 7 seconds before you get back to Hannah Zellers in 5th place. And then the first of our Masters contenders. Now, Masters does not signify anything different with the car. It is simply a skill set of age. It is how much experience in life you have. And Dean Baker in the number 4 is over the threshold of that age limit. The first of our MPC cars is in, and it is Howard Jacobs. So here we go. Jeremy, it's the first time we're going to see this all year. It's a different strategy going on, and I kind of like it. You're putting James French in the car relatively early as the fueling is going on, and we will see, I would imagine, a tire change from the Performance Tech crew. I see James French with his helmet, gloves, fire suit all done up. And I see his co-driver, Kyle Masson, co-driver in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, still with his fire suit, well down, no helmet in sight. So different strategies for the Performance Tech team.
Yeah, well, it's the first time that that team or that car has actually come into a race planning on a change of drivers, because generally Howard will do the race on his own and he will stay out as long as he can, but he knows that James French is a lot quicker than he is, so get him out. No, seriously, so get him out of the car early on. If he's going to drive, you might as well go for the best result you possibly can. So get James into the car as soon as possible and let him run to the end. So that's the reasoning for that call. Several other of the P3 cars into pit lane as well. Is Dean Baker came in car number 4. Number 19, well, both Baker brothers actually came in. Brad came in as well. Rob Hoders in car number 51, who'd been working his way back up after that spin early on. He will hand over to the former series champion Sean Rahal in car number 51.
And Dean Baker will be handing over to Zachary Robuchon in the 4. In the 19, Brad Baker will hand over to Jan Halen. That's a good guy to have in your car. Sean Rahal, as you mentioned, getting into the 51. James French will be getting into the 77. And we have not yet seen Michael Klemecki re-emerge from the pit lane, Jeremy, so I think you're right. I think there is something bigger amiss there. Also, not showing is in the pit lane, but also I haven't seen a sector time pop up in quite some time. Joel Janko in the number 25, have you been tracking him on the lap chart? Have you seen where he's disappeared off to?
Yeah, he's just gone past us. He's still out there, but he is a bunch of laps down.
Tire change going on for the Kerr Motorsport car. That's the 19. So taking their time, putting in Jan Halen. And we have, I just saw one of the Normas come into the pit lane. That's Charles Chi, who has brought in the number 88, a couple laps down. Memo Gidley will be taking over of that car. So that's another exciting name to see on the timing and scoring. Yeah,
the bad news for Memo is because of that incident on the first lap, he's going to be a couple of laps down, which is unfortunate. Here is one of the leaders coming to pit lane. So car number 3, Max Hanratty, has brought his third place car onto pit lane.
Handing over to Garrett Grist from Grimsby I'm sorry, Jeremy, can you say that for me, please? Where's
Grimsby?
There we go. Grimsby, Ontario. So another local knowledge advantageous there.
Tell you what, David Grant's doing a good job after that spin. He's closed right up on Hannah Zellers. That's the battle for 5th and 6th places heading now down through turn 1.
Interesting, because it's 2 different chassis as well. So the Norma should be much better down the long straight because it does have a slight advantage in terms of the high speed. But the Ligier has the advantage through the downforce corners, so it really balances out well at a track like Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. Last year, both of the victories, because we did still have these shorter races, both of the victories went the way of the Ligiers. And so far today, Jeremy, it looks like it's going very much in the same direction. Ligiers have been strong so far.
Yes.
That Norma's lurking, though. TJ Fisher is closing in on the leading pair.
That's exactly right. It is lurking right there, very close to the front 2. Now move up into 3rd place.
And as soon as we mention it, TJ Fisher with the fastest Sector 2 time of the race so far. The afterburners have been ignited, and that young man looking to prove that he can go very, very quickly in the 47 Motorsports. Norma has now taken 2nd place because Chris Wright dives into the pit lane in the number 30. So that's 2 of our top 4 contenders who are making their pit stops, the 30 with Extreme Speed Motorsport. Both of their cars in the pit lane in a very similar proximity and time range. Jan Claret will be taking over that car, the GT1 LMS champion from 2009. Very capable. he'll be enjoying this track this weekend. Let's see, Leo Lamelas stayed out. TJ Fisher 1.4 seconds behind Lamelas. Who's come back out of the pit lane so far? I'm not seeing.
Well, nobody yet. The pit stops, they're an awfully long time, aren't they? So they fall at least two, they lose at least 2 laps making those pit stops.
Yes.
So it seems like an absolute age. I don't think we've yet seen one of the pit stoppers come back past, actually.
We've now got Zachary Robuchon, Jan Halen, Sean Rahal, and James French all on outlaps. They are in cars 4, 19, 51, and 77. So they are all done with their stops and good to go to the end of the race, which is 58 minutes and 40 seconds away. The MPC cars, the remainder of the field, have not yet come in. Bart Wolf leads from John Brownson, then Dr. Masson and Paul Lahaye. And our top 2 still out on the track now with a bit of traffic, as James French came out right in front of TJ Fisher. He's a smart driver, though. He moves well out of the way and just does his thing, puts his head down, does James. Keeps driving his line. Very, very heads up. Just what we expect from James French. TJ Fisher, though, I am so impressed. The gap now is down to 0.6 of a second between first and second, and TJ, who's out of the U.S., wants to prove that he is faster than the Brazilian Leo Lamelas ahead of him. He might just get the opportunity as well. If he keeps going like this, Jeremy, he might catch him before the pit stop. TJ Fisher?
Yeah, well, he's right with him, absolutely right with him, yes. No, I mean, nose to tail, those two now in the battle for the lead, and they're going to stay out a little bit longer. We're just under the hour mark in the race, so not quite to half distance yet.
They've got 17 minutes to play with. I would be shocked to see either one of them dive in this time by, and they don't. They both stay out. I think TJ Fisher is going to have a run at the lead on this lap, Jeremy. He's been closing every time that they have come across the start-finish line, and the Jaws theme music clearly playing in TJ Fisher's mind as he searches down. He sees the red ahead of him and like a bull is charging ahead as fast as he can.
Yes, the number 4 car now in the hands of Zachary Robuchon. He's in the 16th position. He's 1, 2, 3 laps behind, actually. That's how long you lose making a pit stop here. But he has come out the best or ahead of the other guys who made a pit stop. He's got quite a margin over both Jan Halen and Sean Rahal, who are together at number 19 and number 51.
A couple of other notable pit callers. We've got Matthew Dickin in the number 17. He will be handing over to Corey Lewis. Car 42 is Jim Garrett, who will be passing it off to Robbie Foley. Stephen Dawes is in for the number 22. He did not get a co-driver this weekend. He drew the short stick. Actually, he was just the last one to ask. Stephen with the Performance Tech crew. And the number 87, Hannah Zeller's out. And Jay Howard getting behind the wheel of that Norma. Car 4 is going to receive a penalty. That is Zachary Robuchon, who has just taken over. And that is a penalty for the fire extinguisher not properly manned. That will be a trip back down the pit lane and straight out the other side. So a drive-through to be served. How unfortunate. It's
and the number 3 car has just is resumed. That's Garrett Grist, as you were saying, in the number 3 car now. In one of the extreme speed motorsport entries. He's out ahead of Leo Lamelas, so a good pit stop and outlap by Garrett Grist.
Very good. Leo Lamelas, TJ Fisher, Dean Grant, Lance Wilsey, M. Bart Wolf, John Brownson, Dr. Masson, Paul Lahaye. None of them have come into the pits as of yet. And Cameron Castles has come into the pit lane, but is still out on track because that pit visit was much earlier on. That was his initial after the contact, if I remember correctly. Oh, TJ Fisher. Fisher looks down the inside and then decides he can't get it done before turn 8, backs out just a little bit. Very smart driving. And are they going to pit this lap by? No, they're not. They're staying out again.
No, well, one's in, one's not. 7 car stays out. The 47 comes onto pit lane. That makes sense to me.
It does.
Because if TJ Fisher can make he was clearly quicker than Leo Lamelas, but he was unable to find a way around him.
So that means Austin McCusker out of Glen Head, New York will be getting his opportunity to drive. Second in the first race, second in the second race, and it was a very agonizing DNF at Barber Motorsport Park because they were looking so strong for a good finish.
Did you see there was a penalty for car number 4?
Yes.
You did, didn't you? That's serving its penalty right now.
Ah, good. Better to get that out of the way quickly. That's so frustrating as a driver for Zachary Robuchon. Come into the pit lane, serve a penalty. It's not anything you did. It's not anything your co-driver did. It's just a penalty for the pit stop, and it's something not properly manning a fire bottle. There's no excuse for it. I know that that's something that actually James French has done in the past for the Performance Tech team. During these races, when he's been around, he's been given that responsibility. So drivers can multitask as well. Leo Lamelis is still out around the track. He's doing a good lap time. His sector 2 isn't great, but as he comes across the start-finish line again, so he stayed out one more time. You know, I don't know how long I would leave out Leo Lamelis though, Jeremy, because his co-driver is some young kid named Roman DeAngelis, who's fairly nifty around this track. As Lance Wilsey goes for a spin in his Stars and Stripes American flag Ligier. He is on the inside of 5B, so the exit of Moss Corner on the grass, and tries to get some traction to get back. He's going uphill. That's going to be tricky as he high sides it. No, he's stuck. He's not at a safe place. This is going to be a full course caution. Oh boy. He was so close too. If he lets it roll, nope, it's not rolling at all. It's not on any of its 4 wheels right now, Jeremy. Those Continentals are great for grip, but only when they're on the ground. Right now, the floorboard of the car is well on the ground, and the caution is out with 52 minutes and 44 seconds to go. That is so frustrating for Lance Wilsey. He's thinking, if I can shift my weight forward in the car, maybe I can just get some purchase on the front wheels. If I shift my weight back, I can't lean any further back. The rear tire is just spinning in vain. Oh, goodness.
Right, so the rules. So we've now got really the only leading car, I think the only LMP3 car that hasn't pitted, well, apart from Lance Wilsey, who's high-sided down there, car number 33, who was running in the second position actually would have been.
Yes.
The only car that hasn't pitted is our race leader, Leo Lamelis. Now, you're not allowed to make the pit stops under caution.
Correct.
So he will now have to wait until we go back to green before he can make his pit stop.
If you are already in the pit lane, such as the 75 of Cameron Castles, the 47 of TJ Fisher, the 40 of Dean Grant, you're not penalized for being in the pit lane when the full course caution comes out. The time still goes as it normally does. So you're not elongating your pit stop to try and make it more fair. You've actually hit it at the perfect opportunity. So this goes the way of the 47. Austin McCusker will come back out of the pit lane having lost less ground, if you see what I mean, than if the cars were still running around under green, because everyone has to come into the pit lane and do the time stops to exactly the same time. But the cars on track are traveling a lot less quickly than they were when, say, the 42 came in to make their pit stop and Robbie Foley was in. Or, perfect example, when the 3 was in, the Extreme Speed Motorsports, the green and black, Ligier, Garrett Grist.
I think this might put number 47 and potentially number 40, depending on when that leaves.
Yes.
A lap clear of everybody else, actually. I will have to wait and see until the cars come around here.
Yep.
Possibly not.
Well,
there he is. He didn't get out. He's behind. He's going past.
The safety car would pick up the leader on track, which would be Leo Lamelis. So that is correct. So now it will put the 47 on the tail end of lap 34.
Correct.
And Lamelis still has to come in, and he will lose 2 laps.
Yeah, but all the other guys who've already pitted, they're going to be. I think they're going to be a complete lap back.
Yes.
From the leader. So who's going to be out on his own? So that caution period potentially very
scuppering people.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, that's also part of the game. When do you come in to make your pit stop? A lot of people were banking on the early pit stop to make a difference for them. Some people were waiting for this opportunity. The other thing is, we've only got 9 minutes until the pit window closes, 9 minutes and 45 seconds. So you really do need to get in as soon as we get things started up again in terms of Leo Lamelis and Lance Wilsey to serve that pit stop. Well, Lance Wilsey less so because he is not sharing the car with anyone. He got a bit of help from the Chevy Silverado tow truck, just pulling him backwards so that he could have another go at this. Now, don't high side it again, Lance. That would be very embarrassing with all the IMSA safety crew around. He now has a clear opportunity on the track and going downhill this time, very gently over the bumps, and is back on track. So our hazard has cleared from turn 5. And now we'll just get the safety vehicles off the track and the group packed up behind the Mazda MX-5 safety car, and then we should be good to go back racing. I'm very interested to see, Jeremy, if you're right about that, if it has complicated the situation. Of course, we should also say right now, MPC cars, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, because Bart Wolff, John Brownson, Dr. Masson, and Paul Lahaye have yet to make their stops, so they're all sitting pretty right now.
Yeah. But they might even just, generally speaking, we will see an NPC car lead the race at some stage during it, and this might not facilitate that because of the fact they will probably come in at the earliest opportunity at the restart.
Bart Wolff sharing with Tazio Otis, the number 28 machine. John Brownson driving solo in the 34. Masson sharing with Masson in the number 11, and Paul Lahaye, again, driving solo in the 36. So we have 2 MPC cars, Jeremy, who don't need to come in within the next 8 minutes. They could keep going if they can, which I believe they can, fuel-wise. They certainly made good mileage with those Mazda engines at the first race of the season, which was at the Roar before the 24 at the Daytona International Speedway back in January, early January.
Yeah, so number 47 car is going to be the pit. We're going to go green before they make their pit stops.
Yes, because the pit lane does not open until it goes back to green.
So I'm not quite sure whether number 47 car is in relation to number 30, which is otherwise going to be leading a race. He's completed one more lap at the moment. I'm not quite sure where he is on the race surface, on the race track relative to the safety car to the other leaders. But I tell you what, the guy who benefits, apart from number 7 car, the guy who benefits most from this full course caution is Zachary Robuchon in car number 4, sharing that car, of course, with Dean Baker. And he, having made that drive-through penalty, is now able to close right up on the cars to which he had lost a lot of ground by making that drive-through.
Lance Wilsey has entered the pit lane. I'm pretty sure the pits are closed right now, though. I don't think they open when we are under a full course yellow. Maybe that was for extenuating circumstances, emergency service. Maybe he damaged the floor of his car and didn't feel that it was safe to continue. We'll keep an eye on that. The lights are still on the Mazda safety car as Leo Lamelis leads. That would be the number 30 right behind him, Jeremy, I believe. And then the 3, the 40, the 4, the 87. Where is... I didn't see... There we go. There is the 47. He's way back in the safety car chain. So even though he is a lap up on everybody, he's not right on them, if you see what I mean.
Correct.
There are quite a few cars between the 30, which would be leading, if not.
So the number 47 car, I'm taking number 7 car out of the equation right now because he's 3 laps ahead of the rest of the field. But
and needs to
Austin McCusker is the better part of a lap clear of the other guys.
He is not right up on the tail of the 30, though. There are about 15 cars between McCusker and the 47 and Claret in the 30. So there's a good deal of traffic that McCusker would have to get through to try and put another lap on the 30. So there is still hope for another car coming through. Now, if we get another full course caution off the back of this, that would make things quite interesting. But we would have to see the leader, the number 7, dive into the pit lane at some point, and they've only got just under 5 minutes to make that driver change before they run out of time. The 7, the 28 of Bart Wolf, and the 11 of Masson, they're all in the same boat right now, though, Jeremy. They all need to come into the pit lane and do the driver change before the minimum time elapses.
Right.
It works both ways. The window opens with an hour and 5 minutes to go, but it also closes with just over 40 minutes to go, because when there are 40 minutes to go in the race, your subsequent driving partner can't then meet the drive time. And you've got to allow...
I think if there's I think it's written into the rules that if there's a caution period, that kind of you're allowed that leeway. I think.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure about that, I must admit, but I think if the timing of the caution means that you can't come into the pits,
yes,
then that is kind of relaxed as long as you come in the next opportunity.
Yeah, there is something as well to be said for the minimum pit stop time, because the subsequent driver's time does not begin until they reach pit out. So you don't just start counting the other driver immediately when you come into the pit lane. It's not until they leave. So that also makes it a bit more tricky, and this safety car will not be helping a lot of those team strategies.
It's a lengthy yellow. It's not quite sure why it's this long, because it was just that number 33 car, which has got going several minutes ago. It looks like the safety car lights are out. That Mazda will be pulling on to pit lane, and then we'll go back to green, and I believe the cars have to stay out and then come in on the next lap. I don't think they're going to come in right now. We'll have to wait and see on that one. But to reset the order, number 7 car leads from the 4 MPC cars, 28, 34, 11 and 36. Then 2 laps down at the moment to car number 47, and then 3 laps down into everybody else, led by the numbers 30, 3, 40 and 4.
I could never be a safety car driver around here, Jeremy. If I was behind the wheel of that MX-5, I would just stay out the whole time and race what cars were on track. Get into a lot of trouble that way. Alrighty, safety car did come in, so clearly I'm not driving, and green flag back in the air. 42 minutes and 45 seconds to go of round 4 of the IMSA Prototype Challenge presented by Mazda. Leo Lamelas leads on track ahead of Jan Claret in the number 30. Several laps between them, but Lamelas owes us a pit stop, which will be coming any moment now. Garrett Grist in a real fight on track with the number 30 ahead of him, the dark gray Ligier, trying to get position for second place, what will be second place once the leader pits, but further back
third probably.
Further back in the field, there's a great scrap going on between Sean Rahal and Jan Halen. They are decking it out like they are going for the win, Jeremy. It's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, it's going to be a great race here, and the timing of that yellow was just, it couldn't have been better for number 47 team. I mean, they've had all sorts of bad luck this season. Austin McCusker has driven all of the races. TJ Fisher's done 3 of them, but they've had all sorts of bad luck, but I think this one is going to work out into their favour. So if they can keep their noses clean from here, they should be looking good.
Sharp intake of breath from me was Zachary Robuchon going around Keith Grant, giving him a hip check as they come out of 5B, and there is a pass for position retaken. Actually, Jan Claret holding on to third, as the battle continues between he and Garrett Grist, as the leader is in the pit lane. Leo Lamelas in the 7 Ligier finally comes in. That means it's Roman DeAngelis' turn to go to work. Now this will be close on the drive times, as we also have our 2nd and 3rd place cars into the pits as well, which means that Dr. Masson leads overall in the number 11 MPC car. So Bart Wolf handing over to Tazio Audis, John Brownson coming in to do his pit stop, and Paul Lahaye as well. Neither of those drivers will relinquish driving responsibilities of their cars. And Dr. Masson will, when he comes in, hand over to his son.
So he will be credited with leading that lap.
Yes.
Will Robert Masson. Surprised he didn't come in and hand over to Carl at the earliest opportunity. I guess he just wanted to get some airtime out in front again. Not for the first time this season.
No. He led at Daytona, did he not? I think that's where it was.
He's led... No, just one lap at Barber was all that Robert led actually up until now.
Oh. Well, the battle for the head of the LMP3 field continues on track at the very least. Austin McCusker way far out ahead, even though he's behind this battle. I know it's confusing, just go with me here. Jan Claret holding off Garrett Grist, the 30 and the 3, both ESN machines, so that will be a little bit of fun for the team. The next car back is Zachary Robuchon in the 4, benefiting immensely from that caution period.
And here is Robert Masson on pit lane now.
There we go, and they will be running around the car, getting him out, doing the refueling, and then installing the younger of the 2 Massons. As there goes Dr. Masson climbing out of his car.
Right, so once these, still now for the next lap or so, these cars are going to be shown at the front of the field because
Yes.
they were 2 laps ahead, number 47, 3 laps ahead of the number 30. When this is all reset, the number 47 car is going to be at the back of the pack, but leading a race by almost the better part of a lap over this battle that we're watching heading up the hill towards turn 8, which is led by number 30, who's actually edged out a little bit, Jan Claret, on that lap over Garrett Grist. The 2 Canadians then in second and third, Garrett Grist and Zachary Robuchon in numbers 3 and 4, and then the Indy 500 driver from this year, Jay Howard, 4th place in that group in car number 87.
His best Indy 500 finish came this year for Schmidt-Peterson Racing, driving the number 7, where he finished 24th. So a big round of applause for Jay Howard. It's proving he's not only fast in an IndyCar, but he's also fast in a Norma, as he goes personal best lap time through Sector 1. But it was Jan Claret who lit up the screens that time around. The fastest lap of the race so far, and he's going even faster now. 1:14.609 as his best lap. And he clearly wants to put a bit of ground between himself and Garrett Grist. Behind Jay Howard, Sean Rahal, Jan Halen, Corey Lewis, Keith Grant, Robbie Foley, Trent Hinman, and then James French. So some pretty decent names in this series now, Jeremy. It's really fun to see.
Yes, it is, isn't it?
Good battle on track developing. Jan Halen holding off Corey Lewis. They are basically nose to tail as they come down the long straight. You got a lot of time to think about how you exited turn 5 before you get to turn 8, because if you didn't do it optimally, you're going to be passed by multiple people. And Corey Lewis not close enough to Jan Halen. Oh, Jan Halen fighting the balance of the car as he turned into 8, and the car decided to, nope, I'm going to make you work hard for it. He had to turn in a second and then a third and a 4th time before the car finally stuck. And Corey Lewis just sitting back a little bit, letting Jan figure the car out before he gets up to battle with him. Austin McCusker finally shown on the timing screen as leading the race overall. Okay, so we're starting to get into some semblance of normality. Jeremy, I've got a question though. If we have a safety car now, the safety car would pick up McCusker.
Correct.
And all the other cars would go around past, so then we would have everybody effectively on the same bit of track.
Correct, because they are all on the same, all on the lead lap. They're just almost the 3/4 of a lap behind the number 47 car. So yeah, everybody else is praying for a full course caution. In the meantime, Jan Claret is just putting his foot down, and he's going to try the best he can to close that gap. I think it's a bit of a tall order. Even with 36 minutes remaining, he's not going to make up the better part of that, well over a minute that he has to make up. But he has set a new fastest lap again last time around.
2 third-place finishes for Chris Wright in the Extreme Speed Motorsports number 30 before going to Barber Motorsports with Jan Claret in the car, and then all of a sudden it was a win. So they decided to bring him back for this weekend again. Even though they have, Chris Wright this year has driven with Canadian hero Daniel Morad a bit earlier on in the season. Jan Claret working very well with Chris. As another penalty comes through, Jeremy, extinguisher not properly manned yet again, but this time it is for car number 7. That was our leader before the pit stop cycle. That is Roman DeAngelis coming down the pit lane, drive-through penalty. Again, fire bottle not properly manned. That'll be something that the teams will really need to take a nice, long, hard look at before we get to VIR in the middle of August.
It's throwing away a good opportunity.
It is, especially when you put a driver like Roman DeAngelis behind the wheel of your car, a kid 17 years old from Bell River, Ontario. He's only got 1 start in this series. That was a win. That was at Daytona International Speedway. So you bring him to a track like this where he's already very comfortable. It's a recipe for something very good, but it can get thrown away with something that simple. Oh dear, oh dear. Bit of something flapping on the car right in front of our leader, Austin McCusker, in the number 47, as he goes to make a move and try and get around the car ahead of him. I think that is Robbie Foley on the 42. Look, that car, which suffered some damage in qualifying yesterday, looks almost as if the box that covers the springs is coming loose on the 42 machine. That's not a positive sign. Yeah, it's just flapping up in the air ever so slightly. I wonder if that's maybe just like a sticker, if it's just part of the livery that's coming up instead of the actual body panel. But you don't want anything to come off, especially when you have such a lead as Austin McCusker does. You don't want to get hit by a bit of debris from the car in front of you and then have your race completely ruined. Well, at least it's Robbie Foley. He'll know how to handle things if the car does start turning south.
So now all the pit stops have been completed. Austin McCusker has a lead of about 57 seconds, and he lost about 3 seconds on that last lap to Jan Claret, who actually lost a little bit of ground, I think, perhaps to, or fractional, to Garrett Grist, who's about 2.5 seconds behind him in second place. That's number 30 and number 3 in second and third. They come past the start-finish line to complete lap 43. Number 4 car there is hammering along behind him. A little bit of a gap back to number 87, who's got his mirrors absolutely full. There's Jay Howard with Sean Rahal right behind him. Then a bit of a gap back to Jan Halen, and then Corey Lewis. Number 88 car is a lap down. Number 40, 42, and the race leader. And number 75 of Trent Hinman, who's taken over from Cameron Castles. That is a big battle that's going on for 9th, 10th and 11th, but within that 9th, 10th and 11th place battle is our overall race leader, Austin McCusker, in car number 47. So at this stage, Austin just got to keep his wits about him. He doesn't need to pass those guys because he's got a healthy lead at the front of the field.
And who is leading in MPC? One Jay French. That would be James going to the top. So that's the first MPC car that came in to do the pit stop. James has been putting in personal best lap times for the car, and he's doing a pretty good job. He's still not quite at the pace of his teammate Kyle Masson in the number 11. He will be being chased down by Kyle, and I can't wait to see what happens when the two IMSA teammates get on track together in the lights cars.
Yeah, and that's cool, isn't it? I mean, they're first and second in this class. Kyle Masson, of course, has a huge amount more experience in these cars than does James French.
Yes.
But that strategy, all the drivers that made their pit stops before the caution period were definitely advantaged, not disadvantaged. And James French has been hustling along there, and he's going to try and maintain that edge over Kyle Masson. He's got about six seconds on him at the moment, and we'll see. He'll be trying his darndest to maintain that edge.
Now this is an interesting penalty that's just come down from race control. Car 51, which is Sean Rahal, unsportsmanlike conduct warning. So whether that's blocking on track, whether that's perhaps taking a line a bit too defensively, race control is watching the gray and yellow car as Jay Howard is still just ahead of him, and they are well aware of Sean right now. They will be watching on every single screen, and too bad that the top is highlighter yellow of that number 51 machine. It's too hard to miss, Jeremy, so race control will be able to see every move he makes. It's a bit like that song, I'll be watching you. They're up there doing just that. Kyle Masson, he's been improving every lap through. Personal best times from the car. He is closing hand over fist on James, his longtime teammate. Sean Rahal has not given up, though. The Ligier, a car that was victorious twice last year over the Norma chassis, is closing down on the Norma ahead of it. The 51 and the 87, hand over fist as Sean Rahal, young up-and-coming star from the Open Wheel Series, fighting the balance on the 51, fighting against the 87 of Jay Howard, a guy who was the Indy Lights champion and USF champion about a decade ago.
Austin McCusker, by the way, has fought his way clear of that big battle that was going on with the number 40, 42 and 75. As we watch there, Sean Rahal trying to make a move on Jay Howard. Clearly he's a lot faster. Oh, there he goes down
up the inside of turn 5B, so Moss corner, and then he's pulling away. But the problem is the Norma is so fast on the straight. But at least that pass was made cleanly. There was no contact of the 51 on the 87. So very clean move for Sean Rahal.
Yeah, that was a great move by Sean Rahal there. Just dived to the inside. Now he's fending off. He's going to maintain the inside line. I'm sure through his next sequence of corners he's going to put a bit of a gap between himself and Jay Howard in the Norma.
That turn at Moss corner 5B, exactly how you would want to teach it. And actually, very similar to the pass we saw a bit earlier on in 5A that Dave House made on Bart Wolf. It was almost like the completion of that. This is how you do it at 5A. This is how you do it at 5B. We're seeing very nice driving from some of the drivers out there. Sean Rahal now pulling clear and setting sail for Zachary Robuchon. The next car up the straight from him. He's about 3.2 seconds now with just under 30 minutes to go in this race. Can't wait to see where he is in about another 10 minutes time, Jeremy.
And Zachary Robuchon, by the way, in that car number 7, having made that extra pit stop for the penalty, is just set his best lap of the race, 1:17.2. Austin McCusker, too, in the race leading car. He's charging along, having got clear of that battle, which was led by Keith Grant. And by the way, Trent Hinman in number 75 had just found a way past Robbie Foley in number 42. Austin McCusker now has picked up his pace considerably, having got clear of that traffic.
It's going to be fun to watch Trent Hinman and see what he can do in these cars. He's another one of the guys who has been a superstar in other series and is coming into these Ligiers for the first time this weekend. So he's got quite a bit of driving experience in a lot of cars, but the closed cockpit prototype, that's a new challenge for Trent, and it's something that I can see him thriving with. 10th place right now for that number 75, the Performance Tech machine, by the way. Jan Halen ahead of Memo Gidley. Memo several laps down, and Jan Halen looking to try and get a bit of space between himself and Corey Lewis, has done just that. And those three are ahead of our leader, Austin McCusker, in the number 47 Norma, as he has nearly a lap's lead over the rest of the field after that caution. With we now are at 28 minutes to go, and it's not over yet, Jeremy. All it would take is one safety car, and this thing is blown wide open.
That's right, and Kyle Masson now has closed that gap in MPC from a second a lap the last couple of laps. From 77, it's running in 13th position overall, to the number 11 of Kyle Masson. That battle continues. By the way, also hats off to the Eurosport racing team. They've got Michael Klemecki back out into the race. He's many laps down in car number 31, but he is still racing and racing hard, even though he's not really got any chance of picking up any positions.
No, but can learn valuable things about the car. That's always worth sending him back out.
He's got so much experience in this guy, he's not going to be learning
that's
but
true.
He's going to be having a heck of a lot of fun, I can tell you that.
That is true, Jeremy. Anytime you get to drive a race car around Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, do it. Do it and don't think twice. There's a bit of lockup from Corey Lewis as he came through the final complex of corners, 9 into 10, but didn't hit anything, so it was all good there. And James French will have to start looking in his mirrors now, because Kyle Masson is a-coming. The freight train that is Kyle is not too far back, and both of these boys right now, Jeremy, and I say boys because they're still youngsters, their combined age isn't even 40. They will be grinning from ear to ear at the opportunity to battle each other effectively into go-karts. This is wicked. I love it.
Yeah, they're headed through turn 1 and up to turn 2, and certainly game on there for Kyle Masson. Going to be interesting to see how he handles. I mean, he's got a lot more experience in these cars than does James, but he's still got to find a way past. Well, easier said than done.
It's like putting on a comfy pair of socks for Kyle Masson, Jeremy. He drove these cars to perfection last year, running away with the championship. For James French, it's putting on a brand new pair of sneakers that you never worn before, and they don't fit your feet quite well because you just don't know how to walk in them. He has been learning every single lap through, and now with his teammate, and by the way, the championship leading car in effect when we come out of this weekend, right behind him, the orders: don't crash, Kyle. Also, you don't make it easy to pass. I'm sure Howard Jacobs would want his first win, and that's exactly why they put James French in the car this weekend. And Kyle Masson getting a little bit squirrely, trying to make him pass on James French going into turn 8. Squeal of the tires. He backs off just a little bit and decides to let his older co-driver lead. It's just comical when you think about the ages of these two chaps, Jeremy. They've been in the racing. Well, James French has been around for quite some time now. He still is a youngster. And Kyle Masson, who really is a youngster, high school age. Has he actually graduated high school yet, Jeremy?
Who?
Kyle Masson?
Oh, yes.
Yes?
Yes, I think so, yeah.
Well, he's still very young and Man, he looks like he's having fun, though. The tires are squealing on that number 11 MPC car, but he's throwing it around at will and still finding great deals of speed in it. But through Sector 1, the last time through, it was James French who was slightly faster. Kyle catches right back up to them as they come through Moss Corner, 5A and B. Gets a good draft going down the back straight. It's easy to get lured into a sense of security here that doesn't exist as you come into turn 8 of very fast right-hander. And Masson tucking right up behind. Now he pulls out down the inside. He's having a look. James French gives it up and does not fight the championship leading car. That was very classy driving by both of those young men.
Yeah, so there's a change for that lead, and they're the last cars on the lead lap at the moment. In the meantime, number 75, number 88 car, Memo Gidley, he's a couple of laps down still. Actually, it's only one lap down now after that drama early on, but he is just managed to find his way past number 19 of Jan Halen, who's running in 7th position overall, so that's a feather in his cap. And also number 75 car, Trent Hinman aboard, is closing on that battle between number 19 and 17, Jan Halen and Corey Lewis. Robbie Foley is next up, and then behind them is Roman DeAngelis. He's also closing on that little group.
So there is hope yet for the number 7. It's a long stretch, but at least Roman DeAngelis gets to go out and battle against some cars, as Kyle Masson now stretching his long legs as the very tall young man is pulling away from James French. I'm sure James was hoping that he was going to stay close and show him some tricks of the trade.
Yeah, it'll still be Howard's best result, though.
Yeah.
Howard Jacobs' best result, so he'll be happy. I'm sure he's watching on with a mixture of relief, satisfaction and regret, because I'm sure he'd like to be driving the car himself as well.
Jan Halen has been passed by Corey Lewis, but our leader, Austin McCusker, just going by Jan Halen now on track, will then get an opportunity to catch back up to Corey Lewis and pass him as well, so putting both of those cars properly a lap down.
Yeah, it's been kind of frustrating for Austin McCusker, because he's been bottled up behind a whole bunch of cars during this race. He's still got a very handy lead. It's still over 35 seconds, but it's come down from about a minute. It's almost been halved, actually. But as long as he keeps his calm at this stage, then it should be looking good for Austin McCusker and TJ Fisher.
Oh, don't say that, Jeremy. It's too soon. You can have a mechanical at any point around this track, and it's a very long way back to the pit lane, so anything can happen, and that's why I'm not putting any nails in the coffin, not saying any podium positions or anything, because it's much too soon. 22 minutes still to go in this race. Austin McCusker ahead of Jan Claret, Garrett Grist, Zachary Robuchon, Sean Rahal round out the top 5. Then is Jay Howard, Corey Lewis, Trent Hinman now ahead of Jan Halen. So Trent taking advantage of the leader coming through, and Halen slowing down to let the 47 Norma through. Well, Trent Hinman said, "Thank you very much, I'll take that position too," in the number 75 Ligier. Very heads-up driving from Trent.
Yeah, he's charging along there
Yeah.
in that number 75 car.
Third in the MPC class is John Brownson. He is ahead of Tazio Otis, although not by very much, only half a second in the battle for the final podium position in the MPC class. I'm a lot more comfortable talking about that one with 21 minutes to go. As we've been green for quite some time now. The fastest lap still belongs to that second place car, though. Jan Claret with the 1:14.515, and that was his not too far off of his last lap, which was 1:14.7. He's gaining about 3 seconds a lap on McCusker. Do you think maybe Austin has just sort of put it back onto an autopilot mode? He's not pushing?
No, he's been working his way through that traffic, and he's now up behind Corey Lewis as well. He'll want to try and get past him, but that's been the problem, if you like, for Austin McCusker. But
Yeah.
He's been very sensible. He's picked his way past and is doing exactly what he needs to do.
But the fastest lap of the Norma is a second slower than the fastest lap of the second place Ligier. That is quite a big difference between the two. The trap speeds are completely in the favor of the Norma, 157.7 miles an hour the last time through versus 154.5 for the Ligier, so a 3 mile an hour difference. The black car was slower than the red and blue one, but the lap time doesn't say the same story. This track really does help those who have a lot of downforce on their cars, and the Ligiers have been proven to be very strong around here. It would be the first win for Norma at this track in this series, so that is something to hold on to. If the 47 Motorsport guys can keep going for the next 20 minutes roughly, then they will get to claim that, but we're not giving it to them yet. There's still a long way to go.
I was watching the two 5 miles out cars. Okay, well, Memo Gidley has finally found a way past Jay Howard. They're laps apart though, so Jay Howard remains in 6th position. He's fallen a long way back from Sean Rahal. Rahal made that pass 9 laps ago, and there's 22 seconds, I think, or more between, 10 seconds. What am I looking at here? Yeah, 51 to 87. Okay, well, Corey Lewis has found a way past, actually, on that lap past Jay Howard. So I think it was a slow lap for Jay. He must have got, I think maybe he and Memo had some little tussle out there on the racetrack, and Jay came out the loser. He's actually lost a position as well, but he'd lost a lot of ground to Sean Rahal.
3 seconds slower than anybody else that last lap through for Jay Howard, so it must have been something wrong.
He had a sort of bit of a get-together with Memo.
That's not good. Don't wreck and don't wreck your teammate. 2 of the biggest orders, especially when your teammate's car is the team owner. That's an even bigger edict going out. Jan Claret doesn't have to worry about any of that. Neither does Garrett Grist. Garrett, who's driving around the number 3, the Extreme Speed Motorsport car, sort of in delicate isolation right now. The only cars he's seeing are MPC cars, but not the MPC leader, who is Kyle Masson in the number 11. He has pulled out 6 seconds over James French, who continues to circulate in 2nd. In a very safe position for now, 27, nearly 28 seconds ahead of John Brownson in the number 34, who is still trying to hold off Tazio Audis for the 3rd place, the final step of the podium in MPC. There is only half a second between the number 34 and the 28 machines, so that is a good battle as they come through turn 5 now. And Tazio Audis, really good exit speed. John Brownson's going to have a problem when they get into the end of the back straight. Turn 8 will be a passing opportunity. Brownson dedicated early to the inside line. He's saying, if you want to go around me, you're going to have to do it the long way, son. Tazio Audis says, okay, thank you very much. I will, and does just that. Brownson, a victim down the back stretch, loses the final step of the podium, and Tazio Audis now will look to set sail. It's a long way up to James French, and I don't know if he could get all the way there to the Wisconsin native, but he's certainly going to try. There is, let's see, as they cross the line, 28 seconds back. I think that's a bit too much of an ask, but the 28 car will still be happy with a podium position from this race. That's a good result for them. They've got a 3rd from Daytona, then it was 2 4ths, one at Sebring and one at Barber. So getting back to the bottom step of the podium is still an improvement and bodes well for their season hopes.
It's a good battle they're developing, isn't it, for a 7th position between Jay Howard. You've got Trent Hinman on his tail, and Roman DeAndres is right with him as well, and Robbie Foley, who's just been overtaken a lap or 2 ago by Trent Hinman. So that battle for 7th, they're a lap behind the overall race leader, Austin McCusker, but there's a big battle, and Jay Howard has got his work cut out over the final, 16 minutes of this race.
He will. And Corey Lewis, 5 seconds up the road from them, so he's sitting pretty in 6th in the number 17 Ligier, as 4 cars, nose to tail, as Jeremy was just describing. Jay Howard leads Trent Hinman, Rowan DeAngelis, and Robbie Foley down the backstretch, so the Norma should be able to pull away a little bit, 3 miles an hour faster through the trap speed than the competition. Let's see about this time by, just how they stack up. It was 154 from Ligier, 158 from the Norma, so really good speed going into turn 8. Jay Howard with a little bit of a moment to breathe. But coming into the end of the lap, we've got a move, and that is Trent Hinman. No, it's Trent Hinman getting passed by Roman DeAngelis, who's probably made that move about 100 times before in his 17-year-old life, and probably 14-year-old career, if I had to imagine. He probably started karting at a very young age. Robbie Foley sitting at the back of the train, waiting to pick up the scraps, as Trent Hinman now falls into his grasp. Again, Robbie has been doing this championship full season. Trent making his debut this weekend, but Roman DeAngelis, who won the first race at Daytona, the only race he started, looking at Jay Howard going, yes, I would like that position you're holding, please. 7th would be nice. Thank you very much. Could you please move over?
Yeah, that was a great pass by Roman DeAngelis on that at turn 10 here on that lap. A really aggressive but clean pass right down the inside. Unfortunately, that's kind of deja vu yesterday from Trent, who was overtaken for 3rd place on the final, a couple of laps from the end by Damien Faulkner for the podium in yesterday's Continental Tire Sports Car Challenge race. So a little bit of deja vu, which he won't be particularly fond of.
Too soon, Jeremy? Too soon, I think? Yeah.
What?
Good thing Trent can't hear you. Too soon to remind him of that.
Oh, right, yes.
Yeah, he'd still be a little bit smarting from that. So we have 6 cars on the lead lap right now.
And the 17 car is just about to go a lap down. That's Corey Lewis.
As the 47 Austin McCusker head down, just doing what he's doing and driving as fast as he can. His last lap time, though, still 2 seconds slower than Jan Claret in the 30. With 14 minutes and 10 seconds to go in the race, you just wonder what would have happened had we not had that caution fall where it did. This great battle that persists for 7th place, as all of a sudden Trent Hinman getting the car back underneath him, catching back up to Roman DeAngelis and saying, hi, I'm still here. You may have passed me, but guess what? I can get you back.
The young Claret in 2nd place has extended his lead over Garrett Grist now to almost 9 seconds, just a few tenths of a second a lap. Meanwhile, Zachary Robuchon in the 4th position. That gap between the 3rd and 4th place cars, it's extended a little bit, but very little. It's about 5 seconds between the 3rd and 4th place cars. And Sean Rahal, all of a sudden, is quite a bit closer to that, but he's still 7 seconds in arrears.
He's pushing hard, though, Jeremy. He did the car's best Sector 2 time and best lap time the last time around, as Roman DeAngelis closer to Howard than he was the last time as they come through turns 9 and then go into 10, the right-hander to cross the start-finish line. It's a good battle going on for that position, not giving up yet. Bart Wolf handed over to Tazio Audis, a car that looked very good, and it is in the 3rd position. But John Brownson not terribly far back anymore. It's only about 5 seconds, but for the 3rd place, as Brownson got passed by Audis a couple laps ago, going into turn 8, well before turn 8, down the backstretch. That battle just hasn't completely subsided yet. There's still embers in that fire, as the cars are well within sight of one another, and the leader is coming around to pass both of them as he drafts behind Corey Lewis down the long straight. Now he's looking to put Corey Lewis down a lap, is Austin McCusker.
Yeah, he's been trying to do that for a few laps now, but again, with 12 minutes remaining, it really doesn't matter, it shouldn't matter to Austin whether or not he makes that pass. If he can just follow, Corey Lewis is losing a second or so a lap to the Jan Claret, but that's not really significant in overall terms.
Our leader going well offline to try and pass Stephen Dawes into turn 10 and now across the start-finish line. John Brownson using that little bit of a toe to get around Stephen Dawes. No harm, no foul there. That wasn't for a position. That was putting Dawes another lap down on the MPC class.
Yeah, and Stephen there, he did his utmost there to get out of the way.
Yeah, he did.
And he almost caused a problem in doing so. The back markers, the slower cars are always told to maintain their racing line and let the leaders, the quicker cars, work out which way to go. But Stephen there, I guess he telegraphed his move just about in time, but it certainly did cost Austin some momentum as they came out of that final corner.
Just about in time. Jay Howard is being absolutely assaulted by Roman DeAngelis in terms of the mental game, because DeAngelis positioning his car every which way he can to get around, and now it happens. Howard dropping like a stone. He loses position not only to DeAngelis in the 7, to Hinman in the 75, and then Robbie Foley in the 42, so he goes from 7th to 10th in the span of about 2 turns between 4 and 5B. Not a good lap for Jay Howard.
No, and
Ugh.
it was unfortunate for him, for sure.
Yeah, he's fighting back on Robbie Foley as they come down the straight, but Foley holds his line, goes into turn 8, and Howard just drops back. The Norma, not as competitive as the Ligier, at least when it comes to on-track battling, but yet it's a Norma that leads at the front of the field, Jeremy, so we can't forget that clearly the cars do have a bit of speed, and luck has been on their side today. 158 through the trap speed versus 154 for the Ligiers. That's a big difference between the fast Norma down the straight. Clearly not a draggy car. Sean Rahal continuing to put in personal best sector times. He is pushing really hard, still more than 5 seconds behind the 4th place number 4 of Zachary Robuchon. But he still wants to give it his all and show what he can do, does Sean Rahal out of Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah, he does, and on that, unfortunately, lost a little bit of momentum getting past a couple of the MPC cars at the final 2 corners, so that cost him better part of 3/4 of a second. But that gap now between 4th and 5th, between the 4 and that 51 of Sean Rahal, is now back over 6 seconds. It had been over 10 for and had been fairly constant at that for quite a long time, but now it's a lot less than that.
We are under 10 minutes to go, so the hope for a safety car at this point basically eviscerates. It is all about going on track, doing what you can, and points management, because this is round 4 of 6 of a championship, so a lot of work has been done to this point to get us in the season. As, wow, a sketchy moment there as Jan Halen looked at the bright yellow car of Keith Grant getting ever so larger in his mirror as Keith left the braking point a little bit late coming into 9, but manages not to collect the car ahead of him.
Kyle Masson, by the way, in the MPC leading car number 11. He's close right up into the tail of a battle between Jan Halen and Keith Grant that's been going on for a long time. Actually, he's going to try now to go around the outside, and that's not quite going to work. But it might work at turn 3.
Oh boy!
The problem is Michael Klemecki is in there as well. Michael in car number 31 is many laps down,
Exactly.
But he's got a pretty quick car as well.
And Klemecki will know better than to get in the way of the leader in class. Blue flag should be waving for that situation, but seeing as he's several laps down and right behind a battle for position on track, I don't know that they would actually wave the blue flag, lest the battling pair get slightly confused as to who the flags are for. Kyle Masson is playing the smart game now, though. He's being very patient. He doesn't have to get around the cars ahead of him. And that would be the number 3 of Garrett Grist, going around the 2 MPC cars, going around the outside of one and the inside of the other, well before they get to turn 8. Man, that's a bit like traffic cones at that point. That's very dangerous. As Jan Halen still hands full as the 40 goes down the inside of the 19. Great pass from Keith Grant in through turn number 10. And Halen now back to 12. I know that the team that he's with, the Kerr Motorsports team, they were having a bit of trouble getting the engine exactly where they wanted it before the start of the weekend. So that might be rearing its ugly head again as Klemecki cedes the inside line of turn 2 to Kyle Masson. And doesn't give up position for turn 3, though, as they go side by side. Masson backs out of it and gets a bit of a slingshot. Now, don't throw it off here, Kyle. That would not be the wisest thing.
Yeah, went around the outside of Michael Klemecki there at turn 3. That's a pretty brave move. And we'll see what he can do with these 2 LMP3 cars. Hats off here to Memo Gidley in car number 88. He's charging on there. He's doing laps faster than everybody at this stage. A 16.2 last time around. The leader's doing consistent mid-16s when he's got clear air.
Yeah, 15.6 the last time he crossed the start-finish line. Memo Gidley, a guy we've always known has been very, very fast. He is proving once again that he belongs in this series. And we really want to see him come back yet again. Austin McCusker, your leader with 6.5 minutes to go, as Jan Claret still in second, 19-second gap to the man on screen right now, Garrett Grist in the black and green. I got there eventually. Extreme Speed Motorsports car, 12 seconds ahead of 12 seconds behind the second place car.
Yeah, lost a lot of ground
He
on that
did.
lap. He lost 5 seconds on that lap, and he's going to have to watch out because not too far behind him now is Zachary Robuchon.
And that will be a struggle as, again, it's almost as if we're on instant replay, Jeremy, as they come through 3 and 4, Michael Klemecki and Kyle Masson side by side, and right in the midst of some Ligiers trying to pass them both. Now, what car was that, Ligier? Was that the number 4? It was. So Zachary Robuchon, who is involved in a mental battle of his own, trying to catch up to the back of Garrett Grist as he comes down the back straight and has a car ahead of him, but it is not for position. That, yep, the green and black car is in the view of Zach Robuchon now. Stand back from the fences, 5 minutes to go. And the final podium position for the LMP3 class is not yet decided. It could very well go the way. Well, it will be a Canadian, but which one will it be? Will it be Garrett Grist from Grimsby, Ontario, or Zachary Robuchon from Ottawa? That's going to be fun if Robuchon can catch up to Grist. It's one thing to get close to him, it's another thing to get past him. And at a track like Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, it's not exactly a guaranteed. Passing around this track can be quite difficult, as Kyle Masson has learned. As he's still, and Michael Klemecki going 4 wheels off the track at turn 2. I'm sorry, you can't do that. If there were grass there as it were a few years ago, you would have been well off in the wall, and he backs out and gives Kyle Masson the opportunity to drive away a little bit. They were trying to split an LMP3 car, and what happened was Klemecki went 4 wheels off, driver's right, over the concrete, well over the green line, distinguishing the track limit, and managed to make the pass, but also managed to not crash.
It's a good plan.
Yeah, hey, works. Jan Claret still pushing. Personal best sector 2 time for his number 30. Extreme Speed Sport, the completely gray Ligier. But still far back from Austin McCusker.
Yeah, 18 seconds, but that's been cut in. He's cut 2/3 off that margin. He was a minute behind at the restart. He's clipped 40 seconds off that as Jan Claret. Of course, he's got absolutely nothing to lose. Effectively, he's just going to charge along and do what he can. Austin McCusker, he, by the same token, just needs to be aware of what's going on around him and make sure he doesn't make any contact. And because there's a lot of lappery going on here, and the last thing he needs to do is to make a mistake while trying to get past somebody else.
Yeah, completely agree. That would throw it away. You haven't won until you cross the start-finish line when the checkers are flying, so you can't count your chickens before they hatch either. Oh, as somebody goes off, well off at, I think that was turn 3, that's Michael Klemecki. So, stay of struggles continue as he manages to regain the pavement and doesn't look like he's throwing stuff up on the track, so that's the good news. He rejoins right ahead of James French, I think that was, in the 77. Don't want to get in the way of James. He's fighting for that second place finish. As, let's see, Klemecki lost it early going into turn 3. He was well off to driver's left.
And Corey Lewis is still running just ahead of our race leader. And Corey Lewis in that car number 17 in 6th position has just set his best lap of the race with only 2 minutes remaining. So he's doing his darndest. He doesn't want to go a lap down to Austin McCusker. Of course, the reason for that is if there had been a full course caution, then he would have made up all that ground. But he's just doing his best lap of 16.1. Some of the other leaders are doing 15. It's the fastest lap of the race with Jan Claret way back on lap right after the restart with a 1:14.5.
Credit to Corey Lewis. He is fighting tooth and nail. And if the positions stay as they are right now, 6th place would be the same result that they had at Barber Motorsport Park. Their best finish this season came at 5th, which was at Sebring, on the same weekend where Corey Lewis won the GTD class, driving alongside Paul Miller Racing teammates Madison Snow and Brian Sellers. So it was a good weekend for him there. Austin McCusker, 1:30 to go in the race, Jeremy. Do we think he's going to get the white flag next time by?
Indeed. He just went past the start-finish line a few seconds ago and will get the white flag next time.
This will be the longest 1.5 minutes of Austin McCusker's life, listening to every noise that his Norma is making right now, every rattle, every sound that maybe sounds a little bit off, every gear change, listening to the clicks going, please, 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 just keep going. They came close to a win before, but it was not to be had, as now we are under a minute, and McCusker is, I would imagine he's breathing, but not very much, Jeremy. It's probably an intake of breath about every 45 seconds.
Yeah, that's the characteristic of this racetrack, isn't it?
Yes, that too.
But he's keeping calm out there. The team will be keeping him informed of where he is, what he needs to do, how long there is to go in the race, and he's just got to reel off the laps and not get too excited at this stage.
Well, here's a sight that will get him pretty excited, because as he crosses the start-finish line, the final lap is shown on the timing screen. The white flag is displayed around the racetrack, and he only has to go another 2.549 miles, and then he gets to see something a lot prettier as soon as he can get there, and we're not going to give it to him before he does, because I don't want to jinx anybody, but he's already coming into turn 3 and enjoying every moment of this. Not breathing, but enjoying it, because when you lead the last lap at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, you join quite a long list of legends. This place, which has special magic to itself. Bit of lock-up smoke in front of McCusker. Again, he'll be going, no, 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 please, I just want to get down the back straight. Kyle Masson now sees the white flag and begins his final lap in the MPC car that he shares this weekend with Dr. Robert Masson, who will leave with the championship lead if things stay the same. McCusker going down the backstretch. He's only got 3 more turns as he goes into turn 8. There's one. Lets the car drift out just ever so slightly, then tucks it back in for the left-hander at 9. Holds it in tight to the left, and then puts it to the apex on turn 10 on the right side. Crosses the rumble strip and then goes straight over to the pit wall. Checkered flag is out, and the 47 Motorsport team, Austin McCusker and TJ Fisher, victorious at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. Their first win of the season, and a very, very well-calculated drive from both of the young Americans in that car. We'll wait as the MPC leader comes across. He's going down the back straight, and right now, that's feeling like a very long ride. An open cockpit car again for Kyle Masson, something he's not been used to over the last couple of rounds of the championship. Makes the final left-hander, and then knows the way, gotta make that right turn. Before you can see Tanny standing in the timing stand, holding that beautiful black and white flag, waves it over the head of Kyle Masson. And the checkers are out. We have our winners. Congratulations to Performance Tech Racing. Kyle Masson, Dr. Robert Masson take the win in MPC. Second in class will be James French and Howard Jacobs. A big round of applause. Best finish of the season for Howard Jacobs. Third, Tazio Otis and Bart Wolf in the number 28 machine. They also fought very hard for their podium. And now that everyone has crossed the start-finish line in the top 3, I can tell you, Austin McCusker and TJ Fisher, yes, take the win, but in second, it was the 30, Jan Claret and Chris Wright in the LMP3 category. So it's Norma from Ligier, and then third is another Ligier. That is Garrett Grist in the number 3, the car that he shares with Maxwell Hanratty.
Another cracking race for the IMSA Prototype Challenge presented by Mazda. Somewhat affected there, Shea, by the untimely requirement for a safety car. You can't predict that. That's one of the things that just happens. It had to happen, and half the pit stops were done, half weren't. But take nothing away from the number 47 from 47 Motorsports. Austin McCusker, TJ, did a pretty good job at the front of the field under some pressure there, Jeremy.
Yeah, very much so, John, and thoroughly well deserved too. I mean, that car has been on the pole twice this season. They've had various niggly little things that get in the way of bringing that car home to the checkered flag. It's never qualified off. Actually, I guess this was their worst qualifying. Actually, they started in the 5th position. That's their worst qualifying this year. They've been in the top 3 up until this race. So it's been a tremendous drive by both of those two, and a thoroughly well-deserved victory for them and for the 47 Motorsports team.
And especially since it was such brutal heartbreak at Barber Motorsports Park, the last round that they were out racing, which was back in April. They've had a long time to think of what could have been. Now they get to think of what is.
In MPC, the dad and lad day out.
Yeah.
Dr. Masson and his son coming home. Big thumbs up from them. those NPC cars look a lot of fun, Jeremy, and the racing was exemplary again. You can't get a draft, you can't make a pass. Lots of respect given by all of the drivers. I love it. I'm loving that kind of racing.
Yeah, really, really good, and great to see. Some youngsters in their car. Masson there comes away with the win with his father. How satisfying will that be for those two? They'll be absolutely thrilled. An instant back race from start to finish.
And these cars will be back on the track in August at Virginia International Raceway, VIR, another green and pleasant racetrack for the IMSA Prototype Challenge presented by Mazda. Thanks to Shea Adam and Jeremy Shaw on the play-by-play. I'm John Hindhaugh for IMSA Radio and IMSA TV, and we'll follow the full season live here on IMSA Radio.